So I put them separately. Next slide. Okay. 4.6 million kids live in a home where a firearm is present, not locked down, loaded, ready to go, an accident waiting to happen. But I think that we can all work together to reduce these numbers. Next slide. All right. Well, I put this number because it's actually very expensive for our country as well. The whole cost of firearm injuries in our country is over $550 billion. Huge. And I think that we should spend that money to fix some of our other problems. Next slide. Okay. Now, has anyone heard of the Second Amendment? Okay, the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution says that there is a right to own a firearm. Now, many people have debated about whether this is actually true, and the Constitution was written 250 years ago, right? So it's an old document. Does it really apply to us? But actually, the Supreme Court, in the Heller decision in 2008, decided that yes, an American adult has a constitutionally guaranteed right to own a firearm. So actually, that's part of who we are as a country. And actually, we own more firearms in our country than almost every country in the world. We own 40% of all the privately owned firearms on the planet are owned in this country. Okay? It's part of our culture. Next slide. It's part of our DNA, actually. We're a country that drives our cars a lot. We're a country that likes to own firearms a lot. 40% of homes in our country, there's at least one firearm owned, all right? 30% of adults in our country own a firearm. So they're not going away. It's a fact of life in our country, and I need to understand that as a doctor who's trying to save lives. Next slide. All right, now, why do people own firearms? I need to understand this in order to understand how we go about saving lives, right? So actually, this is changing. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, half the people in the country owned a firearm because they were going to use it for hunting, for target shooting, for recreation, for collecting. Now, 70% of the people who own a firearm own the firearm primarily, as you said, right, to protect themselves, to protect their families, to protect their properties, right? So that's changed, right? Because it changes the kind of firearm you're going to get, right? If you're going to go hunting, you're going to get a different kind of firearm than if you're going to protect your house, right? So I need to understand that too. Next slide. During the pandemic, next slide, 5 million people who didn't previously own a firearm went out and bought a firearm or got one. What do you think? Why did they do that? A record number of people specifically during the pandemic, 2021 to last year, right? Anybody have any ideas why people went out and bought firearms specifically? For suicide, because they were depressed, okay? Any other ideas? Yeah. They started not liking other people, being suspicious of other people? Say again? I didn't understand. Death threats. People were scared. You know what? Many people I talk to say, yeah, that there was a lot of fear in our country. And yeah. At home. So at home, kind of fearful about what's going to happen. The world is unpredictable and changing, right? And their response was to go and get a firearm to feel safer, okay? So actually, I'm going to look at the numbers and see what the science says. Is that a logical thing to do, right? Okay, great. Next slide. All right. How do we fix this problem? All right. Well, I think we can, there's a very good example in history that shows us exactly how we should go about fixing this problem, all right? And the example I want to give you is motor vehicles. Next slide. All right, so actually it turns out that in the 20th century, 1920 to 1960, cars started showing up on the roads. Millions more people started driving, and wow, we had a huge number of car accidents. And people said, we need to fix this problem. And what did we do? We created a national organization in the government called the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration that was specifically, their goal was, their job was to reduce deaths from car accidents. That was their job. Next slide. Now, they used 4 tools. research, education, technology, okay, and laws, right? But in a symbiotic, in an organized way. All right, how does that look? So research in our country is really one of the most valuable things for health, right? With all the research and money and the brilliant scientists we have, we've been able to solve lots and lots of diseases. And that's how we solved this disease as well, the disease of people dying in car accidents. So research, yeah, we're really good about that. We need to learn about the problem in order to try to fix it, right? Things like the crash test dummies, right? Who knows about crash test dummies? What are these? These are the crash tests. What do they do? They test our cars, right? So we put these crash test dummies in every new model of car every year, and then we smash them from the front, from the back, from the sides at different speeds. And we decide what happens to our own bodies during a car accident, right? That's very expensive, but it's brilliant because our cars now look completely different from what they looked like 20, 60 years ago, right? We have hundreds of advancements that make them safer, both inside of the car and outside of the car. Next slide. So technologies like seatbelts, which is actually a technology that had to be perfected, or airbags that came in the 1980s, all right? Outside of the cars, utility poles that during a collision are designed to just flop over instead of remaining fixed in place. These are all ways that scientists devised ways for our cars and our roadways to become safer. So research, technology. Next slide. Education. So it's not enough to design the perfect seatbelt. You actually have to convince people to wear it, right? You got a perfect seatbelt, but if people don't wear it, they don't get safer. So we spent millions of dollars and decades to persuade people to wear their seatbelts, right? But there's always, next slide, there's always going to be a person who says, I don't want to wear my seatbelt. So what do? We made laws. We made laws to enforce those things, right? So now, who knows here that you have to wear your seatbelt in the car? Everybody know that? Everybody wears their seatbelt, right? Because if you don't wear your seatbelt, what can happen? That's the one thing. What's the other thing? You can get fined, right? So that's a way of incentivizing people's behavior to make sure that they behave in a safer way, right? So research, technology, education, awareness, and laws, all working together. Next slide. All right, and this is the record. In the years after NHTSA was created, they reduced the death rate on the highways by a factor of 4. This is the most impressive reduction in death of any disease in my lifetime in our country. This is really, really important. All right. So let's learn from that example. Next slide. All right. How are we doing with research on gun violence? Are we using our brilliant minds in our country to try to fix this problem? Well, the answer, I would say, is no, because this is how much we're spending, okay? Per person who dies of gun violence, we're spending $150 every year on NIH, compared to, for example, high blood pressure. We spend 200 times more per person who dies of blood pressure than we do for firearm deaths, right? How can we possibly solve this problem if we don't spend money on research? That's how we fix problems in our country. Next slide. So we're not doing it in research. How about technology? Remember all those technologies that make cars safer? Are there technologies that can make guns safer? Well, yes, and they're called smart guns. Smart guns are guns that are designed only to be fired by the person who owns the gun, right? Wow, and there are 3 basic technologies. One is fingerprint recognition on the trigger of the gun. The gun recognizes the unique fingerprint of the gun owner. There's another technology where there are sensors on the handle of the gun, and the gun recognizes the unique grip characteristics of the gun owner. And a third, where there's a chip in the gun, there's a chip in a watch or a piece of jewelry, and the chips have to be within a certain distance, otherwise the gun won't fire. These are all technologies that can make guns safer. Now, who cares? Next slide. Well, police officers care, because many police departments are interested in this technology. Why? Because every year a few hundred police officers have their gun taken away from them while they're doing their jobs, and the gun is used to hurt the police officers. So if these were smart guns, then those police officers would not be injured in that way, right? So police departments are interested. How about those accidental deaths where a child finds an unlocked and loaded gun, right, and uses it to hurt themselves or somebody around them? If those were smart guns, those injuries wouldn't happen. And how about those teen suicides? If those were smart guns, those deaths probably would not happen, right? So smart guns, they're not going to completely eliminate gun deaths, right? But they could save some lives, right? Maybe even a lot of lives, right? Now, can you get a smart gun in this state? Can you buy one? No, they're not available in the stores, even in the gun shops. Can you get one in the United States of America? I am not aware of any place where they are for sale. That might be changing in the next few months, but at the moment, I don't think you can get one. So here's a technology that's ready to go. Actually, it's acceptable to people who own firearms. They want to see this kind of technology offered for sale, but you can't get it. So we're not spending money on research. We have technology that's available, but people can't get smart guns. Next slide. All right. How about education? Now, where do we all get our education on firearms? Games, right? Where else? Okay, who here has learned about firearms at school? Really? Okay, it would be exceptional because it's not part of the health curriculum, right? So, as you point out, almost all students get their information from video games, from television, from movies. They develop their opinions about what the world is like and how guns are useful from those images, right? By the time an American child is 18 years old, they have witnessed about 200,000 acts of violence, many of them with guns, right? That's how they understand firearm violence. Now, one of the things I'm trying to say today is that I think school is a great place for kids to learn about this, right? Because we have health class to educate us about things that we can do to be safer and healthier people. And I think that's where we should be learning about this. Next slide. Okay? Now, what are the things that we could learn about? Well, that whole question, right? If you get a firearm, if you buy one and you keep it in your home, does that make you safer? All right? Does that reduce your risk of getting harmed? Well, here are the statistics. These are the data. If you have a firearm in your home, you are nearly 5 times more likely to die in a suicide. And if you have a firearm in your home, you are nearly 3 times more likely to die in a homicide. And if you're a person who chooses to carry a firearm as you go around in your daily activities, because you can in the state, you can get a concealed weapons permit and carry a firearm on you. If you choose to do that, know that your risks of dying are 4 times greater than a person who doesn't have a gun. So those are the data, and I want people to understand those data because really the image that they have from the movies is that I'm going to get safer, I'm going to get a gun and be safer. But actually the science tells us that that's actually not true. Next slide. What are other things that we can be aware of? Well, the importance of locking down firearms, right? We knew that 4.6 million kids live in a home where a firearm is loaded but not locked down, right? Just being aware of where firearms are, all right? So I have a sign on my door that says, please don't bring your firearms in. It says no guns. What I mean by that is I say, I don't have any guns in my home, and I would like you not to bring your gun, if you have it, into my home, right? My home, I get to make the rules in my home. But I would like to live in a community where the people who choose to own firearms are open about that, right? And that we can ask, as we're going into a person's home, whether they own firearms. Now, when I send my kids to someone else's home, right, to visit their kids, I want to know whether there are firearms in that home. Now, right now, I don't think that's a question that people can ask because it's not thought of as polite because very few parents actually ask that question, right? Now, we're very happy to ask, does your son have a peanut allergy, for example? That's an askable question, but we don't feel comfortable about asking about the presence of firearms. And if we did, we actually might be much safer, okay? There is a relationship between mental health problems the presence of a firearm and death. There's also a relationship between domestic violence. When two partners in a relationship are violent against each other, if a gun is present, the risk of death goes up very high, right? And actually, every year in our country, 600 women lose their lives, they're almost always women, in a relationship with this domestic violence and a gun present, right? If we knew that that combination was a very dangerous combination, might we be able to take some action to save lives, to prevent that situation from escalating? Next slide. All right. Have your parents ever asked your friends' parents if firearms are present in their homes? This is a question that any of the families here, can you guys say yes? I know that as a parent of kids your age, I didn't ask this question. And the reason I didn't ask the question was because it didn't seem comfortable. It didn't seem regular, right? It wasn't part of the culture. But we can change that. We can change that just simply by being aware of the importance of this and starting to ask that question ourselves. So change, when I say change the world, this is partly what I'm talking about. When we live in a world where people can ask this question, they can make other choices that keep themselves safer. Next slide. All right. Education. Well, actually, living in Alaska, all my friends, as I mentioned, own firearms, right? Because, yes, sometimes there are polar bears that walk around the town. And so I asked my friend, who is a Navy pilot, he flies helicopters, he flies people who are sick from the town into the next major city, and he is passionate about guns. So he taught his 14-year-old daughter, and he taught his 16-year-old son how to shoot. So he was very generous. He brought his firearms with my permission to my apartment one afternoon. We spent the entire afternoon loading and unloading the firearms. We went out and we did some target practice as well. And I was completely changed my perspective on what it's like to use a firearm, right? Because previously I thought, right, from the movies and from watching television, what could be so complicated? It's a firearm. It's a little piece of metal, right? You take your firearm out, you point it, and you shoot, right? What could be so complicated? But actually what I learned here, it takes a lot of skill. It takes some strength and a lot of practice, right? And all my firearm owning friends tell me that if you have a firearm, you should be out on the practice range every month practicing in order to be safe with your firearm. Now, 40% of people who own a firearm don't get any formal training, and almost all of them, 70 or 80% of firearm owners, actually don't spend more than one time a year on the firearm range. Many people who are firearm owners would agree that they're not getting enough training to be as safe as they could be with their firearms. So here's another example for education. Next slide. All right, how about laws? Well, we're not doing so well with education. We're not doing so well with research, and we're not doing so well with technology. How about laws? Well, as I pointed out before, Washington State is great at passing laws. And we've passed laws after laws after laws over the last 10 years. We passed another one this last spring. Well, we have this law called ERPO, a red flag law. Anybody know about that law here? Anybody know about our red flag law, or what that law says? It's not unusual, because I've actually taught more than 7,000 high school students, and out of those 7,000, only 9 knew what this law was. Our ERPO law, our Extreme Risk Protection Order law, says that if a person is mentally unstable, they own a firearm, then their relatives can go to the police or to a judge, and through an administrative process, they can have that person's gun taken away. What do you think? Good law? Bad law? Does it make sense? If a person is unstable, take their gun away to keep people around them safe. I think it's a great idea, right? Now, how's that law going to work? People who own firearms and their families need to know that the law is there. And if only 9 out of 7,000 students I've talked to know about the law, then we have passed a law that nobody knows about that can't save lives, right? So it's not enough to pass laws. We have to educate people again about what the laws are. That's how they can become generators of health and safety, right? Next slide. All right, so what can you do? Those are the things that I can do. I can work on making a National Bureau for Firearm Injury Prevention, which is what part of my work is. But what can you do? Well, the way to remember what to do, be smart, okay? S-M-A-R-T. What does S stand for? Next slide. S stands for secure your guns. If you have a firearm in your home, make sure that it's locked down. How much does a lock like that cost? What are your guesses? $7. You could probably get one for free, right, at Children's Hospital, right? So it's easy to lock down your firearm, right? And that's the safe way, with the ammunition separate from the firearm, right? So S stands for secure your firearms. What does M stand for? Model responsibility for owning a firearm. So if you choose to own a firearm, again, model responsible behavior. That means lock down your firearm. Make sure that you don't intimidate other people with your firearm. Always make firearm safety a priority in your own home, right? And there's an organization in Oregon of gun owners who actually sign a pledge that says these things. So there are people who are passionate firearm owners who are also passionate about safety. Next slide. What does A stand for? A stands for ask. Ask about the presence of firearms. Change the world by making this question an askable question, a routine question, a question that you expect to hear. And when our country is in that situation, then we will see more safety from firearms. So SMA, what does R stand for? R stands for recognize the risk of teen suicide. I gave you this very, very frightening statistics about that, right? 1 out of 6 kids think seriously about harming themselves, right? That means that this is a present risk for many people, that when they go to high school, just statistically, it means that they will know somebody who's in that group, right? They'll need to know what to do to be safe, right? They need to know, next slide, I think we have that there's a suicide crisis number, right? That's easy to use, right? That there are adults in their environment who can respond to those crises, okay? So R stands for recognize the risk of teen suicide. Recognize kids who are at higher risk of harming themselves, kids who are bullied, kids who are using drugs, kids who are talking about violent things or referring to violent things online, okay? Those are all risks for kids who are in trouble. Next slide. Okay. And what does T stand for? T stands for tell your peers. So I can't talk to all kids. What I want to do is I want to make this education part of our regular health education because I think it's that important. And right now, kids are not getting this information, right? So T stands for tell your peers. Next slide. All right, this is where we've been. I call firearm injury our neglected disease. A neglected disease is a disease that's killing many, many people and that we're not doing anything about, right? We're doing little about it. We're spending so little money on research. We're not developing technologies, right? And we're not educating people about that. We're having a wrong conversation in our country. We're having a conversation whether guns are good or guns are bad, guns are right or guns are wrong, right? Guns are a political question in our country, but I think it's a health question, not a political question, right? If we make this a health question, then we can actually make some real changes, right? There actually is an approach that has been already tried and experimented with. We know what works in public health. We know how to save lives, but we're not learning those lessons yet that we could apply from the good example of motor vehicle accidents, all right? And lastly, we can be smart, S-M-A-R-T, right? S stands for secure guns if you own them. Model responsible behavior around guns. Ask about the presence of guns. Recognize the risk of teen suicide and tell your friends. Next slide. And this is my home security system. My dog, it's actually my granddog named Monkey. She's a very sweet and gentle dog, actually. People think she's very fearsome looking, but that's how I keep my home safe, all right? So that's my talk. I'd love to have your questions. We have some more time, Davi? Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? This was a very academic talk, Academic, I mean, it's like more of a college talk than a high school talk, maybe. So I guess, but yeah. Any questions here? Anyone? And I'll ask this. You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but are there any families here where guns are owned? Not here. So this is not like Alaska, right? Where everyone owns a gun in Alaska. No one owns a gun down here. So in your culture, so you are living in a peaceful culture where the ideal is for people to be nonviolent. And that actually is a safe way to live, right? It keeps people safer. Yeah. Yes. Great question, right? So if we have smart guns, the question is, if we have smart guns available, we have actually 400 million smart guns that are not smart, dumb guns, right? Where will they go when people get smart guns? Well, we occasionally have buyback programs in our country. They're advertised, right, by the police departments. They say, you know, now we will buy back guns that people don't need, right? So people will take out their old guns that they have in their attic that they've never, that are not around, and they'll sell them back to the police or give them back to the police to melt them down. So that's one thing that could be done, right? But your point is very good, right? In a country where we already have 400 million guns, we have to find a good solution to actually deal with that, right? For people who are going to get a smart gun, presumably they're going to get a smart gun because they want to be safer, right? They will go from a home where they have dumb guns to a home where they only have smart guns, and they will want to get rid of those dumb guns, right? So we'll have to find some creative ways to do that. Right now, the first step is to actually make the smart guns available to people. But yeah. Long guns or the technology right now, mostly pistols. People who get a firearm in order to protect themselves almost always get a pistol. Presumably, the people will still feel the need to have a firearm. Those people who feel like they need to have a firearm to protect themselves will still acquire one, right? But now they'll have an option to acquire a safer one. Yeah. I didn't get any questions from this side. I know there's some smart folks here. Yeah.
How does gun violence in the U.S. compare to other places?
Great question, right? So if we own 40% of all the privately owned firearms on the world, in our country, actually, we looked at the statistics on gun ownership, and the laws in our country are very different from the laws in other countries. Take, for example, Japan, which is another economically developed country. They have very, very few guns, and they have a very, very low rate of gun violence. They have essentially almost zero people dying every year from gun injuries, right? Another interesting country is Australia. Australia is interesting because Australia is another country that's a big country, big agricultural country with many people who like to hunt and use firearms for recreation. And they also had a big mass shooting many years ago, and they ended up passing a law that strictly, or more strictly, regulated a person's ability to own a firearm. And as a result, it seems, over the ensuing 10, 20 years, their rates of firearm death have gone way down. So if you're going to use that information as a comparison, one of the possible ways of reducing firearm injuries in our country might be to regulate them more strictly. But I must say also that if you're paying attention to the debate in our country about guns, many people who own firearms are passionate about owning a firearm. It's almost like a religion for them. For them, it might be like a tradition, like a sacred tradition to own a firearm. So while I may not agree with that, or it doesn't matter whether I agree with it or not, really, it's part of the law in our country, right? And part of the culture, even if it's not part of our own culture. We live in a very diverse country, and people think different kinds of things. So in my opinion, I don't see a way for us to go from a country with 400 million guns to a country with many fewer guns. They're around to stay, at least for my lifetime. But I'm already old, so maybe things will change after that. Other questions? Good questions. Anything else? Yeah. Say? Why do people love to own guns? Well, okay, so let me tell you about my friend, right? The Navy helicopter pilot. He was brought up around guns. And his memories as a child and growing up were going out hunting with guns and actually learning about guns. Guns are actually fascinating little machines. They are brilliantly engineered, right? They're interesting to hold, right? I went out with my friend and we went to the range. I could see why people might be interested in them, right? In the same way that people might be interested in cars. They're kind of cool, right? It's ingenious. And they were brought up that way, and that was part of their culture. So, and that's just a difference that they have, right? So does that help explain why that is? People have very many different kinds of experiences growing up, and it changes what their attitudes are when they grow up. Yeah. So when you go to school, some of your classmates will come from families where they own guns. Does it mean that they're bad people? No. It means that's their culture, right? Now, their culture, if those people own guns, but they don't lock them down, they're not responsible for their firearms, those guns might be dangerous for us too. They're really dangerous for them, their families, right? So if you choose to own a firearm and you choose not to be responsible, then you're at much higher risk, right? Yeah. Any other questions? Great questions. What a bright group of folks. Terrific. Anything else you think about? We've got some extra time. All right, we're good. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a real pleasure and an honor meeting you. If you have any questions, you can actually give them to Dahabe, and she can forward them to me, and I'll be happy to answer them if you don't feel comfortable asking the questions right now. We get back to Ari here.
All right, thank you so much, Thank you so much, Dr. Engel, again, for sharing your expertise with us. Always interesting, always informative. Do you guys need to set up anything? Yeah, okay. Please bear with us for a moment as we prepare for the next presentation. So just one moment. While we're waiting, please feel free to grab a snack, go to the bathroom. It'll be like 2-3 minutes. Thank you. All right, everybody. Happy to see that we got some snacks being handed out. Once you get your snack, please find a seat and get comfortable. That's great. Yes, please grab a snack. And I like this idea that people are saying for participants to move closer up. We don't need everyone all the way at the back. On the women's side as well, please come up a little bit closer to the front. Don't have to be so shy. All right. Okay. For our next presentation, we have two representatives from Seattle Police Department. We have community service officers Weems and Bowen. I got to work with Clyde Weems last year on this same sort of project. I'm a little familiar with what they're going to be sharing with you, which is a really fun and interactive presentation. They'll probably say this. I want to encourage you all, participate, share your ideas, share your feedback. I know it's a very interactive presentation. So with that said, I'm going to hand it over to them, and yeah.
Okay, can y'all hear my voice? I don't need a mic. Y'all hear me? Yeah. We good? You hear Phil?
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Okay, so we won't use the mic. We'll just pick it up. So, first of all, assalamu alaikum. Thank you for allowing me to come out here. My name is Clyde Weems. I'm a community service officer with Seattle Police Department. I've been with the police department for 2 years now. But prior to this, my jobs varied from working with high-risk youth who were involved in gangs and gang culture and gun violence. I worked in Los Angeles, California. I worked in the Bay Area, California. And for the past 16 years before I came to Seattle, I worked in Harlem, New York. So I'm familiar working with a lot of youth. We did a lot of different things such as conflict resolution. We talked about working with the police department in order to make our community safe. So I've been doing that for a number of years. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my partner, Phil, so he can introduce himself.
Phil. I'm also originally from New York State. I work with young men in residential treatment who had history with gang involvement. They were all adjudicated. That meant they had committed a crime, and they were placed in a treatment center by the courts. So these were young men and also young women that had kind of lost their way and got caught up in the criminal justice system. I did that for 16 years before moving to Seattle, where I did community mental health, I did casework, and then I joined the Seattle Police Department to be a community service officer, where I can apply kind of that entire skill set for the community I live in now.
Can you pull ahead a couple slides? Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Right here. Go back one. Okay, so before we begin, I'm gonna also share a little something personal about myself and the reason why I do the work that I do. So when I was a young man, I grew up in a neighborhood that was full of violence, gangs, a lot of gunplay, and at the age of 17, I personally lost one of the best friends I've ever had in my life by the name of Chris Robinson. Unfortunately, he was shot 17 times. His life was taken, and there was many disputes of why it was taken. Some people said it was over dice games. Some people believe it was gang affiliation. I don't know why. But being that he was one of my closest friends, and we knew each other since the age of 7, so losing him at 17 really changed the trajectory of my life and really put me on a path to want to work with you so we can help people get to decisions and make better decisions, right? So today we're going to talk about gangs, culture, gun violence, and why they go hand in hand. So we're going to ask you some questions. Please raise your hand. Ignore the unmute because the last time we did this presentation we were online. But one thing about us, there's no such thing as a dumb question. If you don't know, you don't know. Just ask your questions and we'll go from there. All right? Next slide. Okay, so real quick, just a warm-up question. What does a family need to provide children to be successful? What do you think? What do you think? Yes. School, that's a great one. Anything else? that's a big one. I like it. Another one. Anybody else? Go. Clothes. Yes. Come on, keep it going. What do you think? Okay, you. What do you think? Shelter. What else? Somewhere to sleep. Home. That's it. Anything else? All those things are correct. Yep. There's so much that goes into it. You can also throw in love. You can also throw in support. You can also guidance, faith, education. That goes on somewhere. Those are great answers. Thank you. Next slide. All right. So here's a quick question. What do you guys think a gang is? Give me the definition of a gang. Some of you can cheat, use your phones. I see you. Don't worry about it. What do you think is a definition of a gang? Yes. Violent people coming together to do bad things? That's one. Yes. A bunch of people that just come together, just hang out? Okay. Anything else? Both are right. Okay, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You all all you guys are right. Gangs are all those things. Gangs are, by definition, a group of people coming together, right? But in recent terms, they've been changed to do bad things. So, to show you the definition of gang, right, way back in the day, way even older than me, they had this TV show called Gang, all of was it Little Rascals, Gangs in here? Yeah, so like, and that was just a gang, it was supposed to be something else, but over the years, they used this terminology to make it, what you said, people coming together to be bad, to do violent things, and then some laws, they have determination of gangs into them, right? So if you do something with a group of people, bad, and even if you're in the vicinity of it, you can get in trouble because they'll gang you into, they'll have you be a gang. You listen to them, I'm sorry. Okay, like I was saying, if you're in a group or area and something happens, they can charge you because you are involved in a quote-unquote gang, right? Any questions? Yeah.
So like an example would be, say, one of you guys took a candy bar from the store. Not great, not a huge deal in the scheme of things, in the scheme of crimes. Say 5 of you did it. All went in and took some candy bars. Say you got into a scuffle with one of your buddies. Not great, not a huge deal. Say 5 of you got into a scuffle with a buddy. You're getting into, that's now kind of a gang assault. So that's how that kind of is used, just in a way.
Also, that's a great point, right? Everybody, a lot of you guys have this right cell phone, right? With social media, things of that. What do people like to do today? When something happens, the first thing they do is they take their phone out and they record, right? So it could be a fight, it could be an assault, it could be a bunch of people stealing things, right? If the police can track your phone and you're part of that, and you record it, you can be convicted or charged, not convicted, you can be charged with being in association with the gang because of the filming stuff. So you have to be really careful with those type of things, okay? Any questions before we move on? Any comments? Yes, no? Okay, great. Go to the next question. Okay. How do gangs meet the needs of certain people that join the gangs? Why do you think some people feel like they need to join a gang? Yes. Feel safe, great. Protection, that's another good one. What else? Have power, that's another good one. Anything else? Yes.
Some people are lost and don't know where to go.
Feeling lost, need somewhere to go. Yes. Yes. Fight their ops. Yes. It's a really good one. This question right here is a very broad question, right? A lot of times, first of all, everything you said is right on. Sometimes people feel lost. Some people want to feel like they belong. Some people don't have families, right? They don't have anybody they can go to feel safe and get love from. And so they go to these gangs to fill these needs. You gonna say something? So that's a great answer. Gangs try to trick you into filling these needs, right? Because sometimes when you're with a bunch of people, you're feeling good, you're wearing the same color, you're representing the same thing, you feeling like you're part of a family, you feeling like, you know, you feel lost, you have purpose, you have ops or enemies for people who don't know what that means, and they feel like, you know, we can just move together and do one thing, and they feel like that they're feeling that needs, and in more cases, people really have more loyalty to their gangs than their own family. Okay? Next slide. Okay, here's a good question. How do gangs get people to join? What do you think are some ways people, yes? Physically hurting the person. Yes. I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you. Okay. Tricking you or blackmailing. That's a good one. Anything else? You got something? Making you join? Forcing you, same thing. Yes. Bribing. Anything else? Giving you money to do it. All those things, yes. Right? So, one slang term that's been around for years is putting in work, right? They jump you into a gang, and it depends on where you at, what you do. Sometimes they'll put you in a circle and tell you to fight 35 people to prove how tough you are. Sometimes they'll have you go shoot somebody, right? An innocent person, just to show your loyalty to the gang. Sometimes they'll have you rob somebody, right? In order to bring money to the gang. It depends on whatever they want you to do. There's so many different variations why they get you to initiate you in the gang. But at the end of the day, what they're trying to do is a couple things, right? They're trying to show you, they're trying to get you to show them that you have loyalty to the gang, but also they'll have something on you, right? If you do something for a gang, if Phil wants me to join a gang, and Officer Phil wants me to go shoot somebody that he has a problem with, right? He gets me to do it. I go shoot him, and now he has something on me. He could be like, well, you know, hey, cops come looking for me, I'm gonna tell them you did it. You gotta do what I say. These are the types of ways that they manipulate you to join a gang, right? Another way that they manipulate you to join a gang is, we talked about it earlier, they try to fulfill those needs. They try to make you feel like they're giving you something that you don't have in your own life, right? Love, respect, loyalty, safety, a place to belong, right? In some cultures, some people believe that the color of the flag is higher than the belief in God. In some cultures, right? You'll see people take other people's lives, and they'll put their own lives in their own way just to prove their loyalty.
I would say, coming from New York, where gangs were more prevalent, you would see that kind of more intense stuff. You would see the jumping people in, you would see the murders, you would see all sorts of kind of horrific things. I've noticed in Seattle, it's not always that way. It's like, oh, boost this car with me, hold this gun for me, hold these drugs for me, minor stuff like that. So it might not always be like, hey, you got to kill someone. It might just be, you have to hold this for me. Oh, we're going to school, put this in your locker for me. Oh, you know, I'm going to get in trouble for this, so say this for me. So it's not always going to be these grandiose things. It could be something more minor that builds itself up. Hold on to my backpack, hold on to this. Watch out for me. Say I was at your house, stuff like that.
Also, to add to that, it doesn't have to be such a criminal act, it can be a personal act, right? Women, right? In some cases, women have to give themselves to the gang members physically, right? In some cases, men have to give themselves to gang members physically in order to prove that they're loyalty. It doesn't have any basis, but also now it's very sticky because of social media, right? I know a lot of you may see, not saying that you do, a lot of you may see friends, you know, they throw up a gang sign on social media, they'll do a certain dance, they'll wear a certain clothing, they'll speak a certain slang in order to show affiliations to those gangs. And believe me, you have gang members watching your social media accounts because they want to know if you're down or not. Okay? Any questions? Yes. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. That you can be quote unquote born into a gang, depending on what neighborhood you're from, depending on what affiliation your father, mother, or someone had before, right? Like there are a lot of gangs who are nationwide, they spread out, but because their father was a gang member and their mother was part of the gang, they feel that they're born into the gang, kind of like a legacy thing, which is preposterous, but that's just the way some people think. That's a great, great observation. Here's a good question. Who do gang members recruit? Criminals? Kids? Anybody else? You're both right. Yes. Friends. Yes. Families. It's tough people. You think you gotta be tough to be in the gang? Okay?
Do you think maybe sometimes they recruit vulnerable people too? Or do you think you gotta be tough?
I'll tell you this, I think that the vulnerable people are more dangerous than the tough people and folks who join gangs. You know why? Because a vulnerable person has more truth. They'll do more things to show their loyalty. What was you gonna say? Relatives. Yeah. Yes. Say it again? Let me know if you think about that. Listen, I'm gonna say this, you guys are all right. And I'm gonna say this, gangs recruit you. They don't care. They want people that's gonna bring benefit to their gang and their cause. They're gonna want you whether you're lost, whether you were born into it, whether you were tough, whether you're not tough, whether you can hold something, they're gonna recruit you, right? Because I think sometimes people, they get the misconception of what a gang is. It doesn't have to be a Crip, it doesn't have to be a Blood, it doesn't have to be a quote-unquote Latin King or these popular gangs that are out there. There's always someone that's gonna try to manipulate you in order to do things that, fulfill the, that they want you to do, right? So it doesn't have to be necessarily set, like in Seattle, as Officer Phil just said, it's not what it is nationwide, right? Seattle, there's different subsectors, and there's just a group of people that hang around and they do things, and maybe they say that they're something that they're not. You just have to be wise to it. The gangs recruit you. Questions or comments before we move on? What do gangs do? Kill people? Hurt people? Sell drugs? Rob someone? Run someone? Robbery? What you said? Robbery. Fight other gangs. Break into houses. Violence. Threaten people. Anything else? Jump people. Torture. Anything else? You guys covered it. But they also make rap music in a lot of cases, which I can't stand. Like they do a lot of, they make internet videos. They make fashion statements. They try to make false philosophies. What else they do?
I mean, sometimes they're just watching the block, you know.
Watching the block, the plot. Everything that you said is right. Gangs do a lot of things. These questions that we're giving you are pretty open-ended because you know what? There's more than one right answer. Gangs do a lot of things. Like I just made a joke about rap music, right? No, this guy's really trying to make rap music and trying to be famous and trying to be famous off of being a gang member of different cultures. But as you see over the past few years, right, you've seen a lot of violence in hip hop, right? Nipsey Hussle, everybody know who Nipsey Hussle was? Got shot, his name PMD, he got shot. There's a whole bunch of rappers I can't even name because I don't even know who they are, but they got shot because they're throwing up gang affiliations and saying that they're from somewhere and they're trying to represent a certain city that they've never even been in and they end up getting killed over nonsense. So that's just a lot of things. Okay, here's a tricky question. Why do people leave gangs? And I'm going to throw in, how do you leave gangs? Yes. There's no pressure? You think it's that easy to live a gang because you feel pressure? No? If you tell me you join a gang and you feel like I'm going to just you're gonna tell your gang members like, I'm gonna leave because I just feel pressure. Like, I don't wanna gang bang no more. I don't wanna go up to set. I feel pressure. That's good. Yes. Stop doing stuff because they don't feel like being in the gang. Your family tells them to leave. Anything else? Yes. It's not. It's not. That's a trick question. I'm gonna tell you the number one way that a lot of people leave gangs. Y'all ready for this? Y'all ready? No, y'all ain't ready. Y'all ready? Alright, I'm gonna tell you the answer. Death. No, seriously. Seriously, because like I said, I was just messing with this young man right here. There's a lot of reasons why people want to leave gangs, but once you cross over, man, it's a lot harder to leave the gang than it is to join the gang, man. Like I want y'all to think about this. You're gonna have a person or a group of people that think about what we talk about today. Robbing, killing, drug dealing, getting money, making horrible rap records, representing the set, don't care about life. And you mean to tell me that you're gonna walk up to a gang member and tell them, yo, I'm feel pressure. Leave the gang. I don't wanna do this no more. Right? They make a whole bunch of rap records about people that's gonna leave the gang. If you're gonna leave the gang, man, it's very difficult. I said it earlier that it's real easy to join a gang. Believe me, it's real easy. Some gangs take applications. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just joking. But no, it's really difficult. You have to put in a lot of time and effort to walk away. Because there will be some type of consequence to walk away. You might have to fight your way out. You might have to do something. Even if you get locked up and go to prison, right? There's still gang banging in prison. There are more gang members in prison today than anywhere else. Because, like you said, it becomes everything that we talk about. People join gangs in prison because they want to feel safe. They want to feel protected. They don't want to be the hunted, they want to be the hunter, right? So this is why they join gangs. So if you know anybody that's involved in gangs, what you need to do is you need to talk to, your imams, you got to talk to the police officers, you got to talk to the OGs, people who are doing the best things. The best way to lead a gang is to never join a gang. And if people are doing criminal activity, the best thing that you can do is stay busy. Come to programs like this. Go to your local community center, play sports, get a job, do things to coddle all that idle time that you have to be with the gang. Because the more time that you have to be with them, the more time they're going to try to make it to you to do things.
And say you just grow up and you think you're gonna grow out of it. The thing is, maybe you've never murdered anyone, or maybe you say you've never done any of the extreme things that we talk about, but you watched out for a buddy while he was stealing a car, you watched out for a buddy while he was selling drugs, you watched out for him while they were doing this other stuff. And then suddenly you go to college, you do whatever, you're owning a business, you're trying to get out of there, you're trying to do other stuff. Who mentioned the blackmail earlier? One of you guys mentioned blackmail, right, for joining gangs. So, you've done all this stuff, you're getting success, you're getting money, you're doing whatever. What are they going to try and do? Do you think they're going to let you go, or do you think they're going to try and use your success to further the gang? Because that's their goal.
So there was a famous, I couldn't stand him. I mean, he was the worst, but he was a famous rapper a few years ago by the name of 6ix9ine, Tekashi. Everybody know him? Dude wore Fruity Pebble like teeth and had long hair and just made terrible rap music, but for some strange reason, this dude was popping. I mean, he was popping. He was getting money. He was like on all the TV shows and the internet, right? He was telling everybody what type of gang member he was. He was tough, and you know what happened? Just like Bill said, the gang started to blackmail him. So any type of money he made, they took it. They didn't ask for it. They didn't take half. They took the money, right? They went into his house, took over his home. One of the guys come up over, took his women, and he was actually, it's on the internet now. They jumped him in the car and they basically beat him up, and he recorded it and, got the guys to admit that, what they were doing to him, and he actually rolled out the car, while he was moving to survive. And he's had to deal with the consequences of that. He's not as famous as he used to be. He's kind of a punchline of a joke, but very difficult to lead gangs, man. You can do it, but it's really tough. You know, the best way to do it is just to not put yourself in that situation. You know? Yes. Respect him. Alright. What I'm gonna do for this next section is we're going to give you a scenario, right? I want you to just, you know, you can talk amongst yourselves in groups and just give us some answers back and tell us what you think the answer is, okay? Next slide, please. Alright. So this goes on to something this is supposed to be for second part, but I just want to see if y'all know these answers. At what age can you legally buy vape products, driver's license, be sent to a daughter's court, or possess a firearm? So I'm gonna give y'all like 2 minutes to get to little groups real quick, answer those questions for us, okay? And there's a reason why we're asking these questions, so I'm breaking down to you. Don't be cheating using your phones. Don't be cheating. Give y'all 60 seconds. All right, about 30 seconds left. All right, we're gonna wrap it up a little early, so we're gonna come back together in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're back. Yes, great job, everybody. Okay, let's ask the first question. How old do you have to be to buy and use tobacco and vape products? 21? Anybody else? Anybody else? How old you gotta be to buy vapes? Yes. 21? You? 18? 21? 21? 18? Yeah, you got your hand ready to look. You don't know, take a guess. Take a guess. 18, 21, 16? Take a guess. Huh? 12? Okay. I can tell you that's what I can tell you. 18? Anybody else over here? 18? Okay. Going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The correct answer is 21. Alright, next question. How old do you have to be to get your driver's license? Oh, everybody got their hands up. Let's go to the side, yes. Huh? Right. 16? Anybody else? 18. 16. Huh? 18. Here comes the tricky one. How old do you have to be sent to an adult court for a crime? In the back. You got your hand up, I see. Go ahead. 18? You. Yes. Hold on, I can't hear. I can't hear in the back. Say it again.
Let's say Washington.
17? That's your answer? Okay, yes. 23? Okay, yes. 16, 20, 18, right there in green. 16, 18, 21, 18, 18, 18, 18. Say 14, 18, 19, 18, 21, 20, 18. Okay. Here's the answer. To be sent to adult court in the state of Washington for an adult crime, you need 16 or 17. Now, the reason why I asked that question is because it ties into everything that we were talking about, right? If you are with a bunch of friends, right? Just say y'all not even a gang. You and a bunch of friends together. One of your friends sees somebody coming up the street that he or she that does not like. So they decide, yo, he's gonna get it on. I see this sucker, I'm gonna knock him out. Y'all got my back? That fact is recorded. So we get into a fight. We tussle, this guy's by himself, you hit him, they hit their head, they die. Right? It happens. Sincerely, it happens. Believe me. Every day we'll be here. What do you think you'll be tried as? Huh? Try, like, what do you think you'll be charged with? Assault? Nah, go ahead. Huh? Yeah, you gotta go to court. Yes. Huh? Manslaughter? Murder? Homicide? I'm gonna say all of you are right, right? Because it depends on how the Lord pitches on you, but more importantly, even if you're 16 or 17 years old, you'll be tried as an adult for all of that. Like, sincerely. Like, it doesn't just have to be the state of Washington, but there are countless and endless stories of young people getting into situations and being tried as an adult. Now, the reason why I brought up the group of friends is because there'll be additional charges for being accessories to a murder and quote-unquote a gang. So you guys have really have to understand that as young people, you guys have got to make better decisions in how you handle certain things. Now, I'm telling you this, there's an old saying, right? Choice, not chance. The better choices you make, the better chances you have in life. To you, it may not seem like it's a big deal to be with my friends and get into an altercation when it's 5 of us and one of them, but it doesn't matter what you think, it matters what the law thinks. So you have to be really careful in scenarios like that. Okay? Moving on. How old do you have to be to possess or own a firearm in the state of Washington? I think the gentleman before that state answer, they want to get the presentation. I think. Let's go. You. 21. 21. 21. 23. 21. 21. 18. 21. You think? 18. That is correct, but what do you think instead of Washington? We're in Washington. 21. 24. 18. Answer is 18 in the state of Washington. Alright? So you can get your life, you get it right at the age of 18. I suggest you don't do it unless you're going hunting, but alright, here it comes. Which is the following is true about juvenile court? You can't get time in juvenile court. juveniles can only go to juvenile court, not an adult court. You can be sentenced to a secure facility until you're 25. Being trick question, none of these are true. Which one of y'all think is true? Just give me an answer for A. If you think A is true, raise your hand.
You can't get time in juvenile court.
If you think this is true, raise your hand. Okay? B, juveniles can only go to juvenile court, not adult court. Raise your hand if you think that's true. Y'all sure about that? We just talking about we just literally talked about something, right? We literally just talked about that you can go to court at 16 or 17 for adult court. A, you can get time in juvenile court to a juvenile facility.
That's where I used to work.
Yeah, I chose not to work. Alright, C, you can be sentenced to a secure facility until you turn 25. You think that's true? Raise your hand if you think that's true. Raise your hand if you think it's false. Raise your hand. I just want to see the alternate.
So in Washington, you can be held in a youth detention facility until the age of 25, but they can also transfer you out to make room for younger adults.
And depending on the crime, it's considered an adult court, right? So we got next slide, please. All right. Question. Who can be tried as an adult? Can an 18-year-old accused of shoplifting be tried as an adult? Raise your hand if you think it's true. Correct. Okay. A 15-year-old accused of first-degree assault, can they be tried as an adult? Raise your hand if you think that's false. A 15-year-old accused of first-degree assault.
You can be tried as an adult depending on the seriousness of the crime as young as 14, but it has to be extremely serious. 16 and 17 is more likely for first-degree assault.
Well, you just answered that. Okay, here we go. Here's a good one. A 16-year-old accused of second-degree robbery with 2 priors. Second-degree assault on their record. Can they be tried as an adult? Raise your hand if you think that's true. Okay, raise your hand if you think that's false. Raise your hand if you're not paying attention. You're correct. A person can be assaulted because they have the priors in their record. Okay? Actually, it's all the above. All right? Next slide. Scenario 3. Here's one I'm passionate about. You post a picture online of yourself flashing an airsoft gun that looks real with the caption, "Got you in my sights." Could you be charged with a crime? A, no, you have the right to the freedom of speech. B, is no, as long as they can actually, no, as long as you don't actually have to hurt the person. C, no, because it's not a real gun. Or D, yes, it's harassment.
Who thinks it's A? B?
D, okay, well, C or D?
It's B.
It's D, it's harassment. Also, it can be also considered a terroristic drug, right? You throw up any type of weapon on social media and definitely use this caption. No one has the time to think, oh, he or she is just playing, right? So there's a big upswing, especially in South Seattle. A lot of young people shooting those pellet, the paint guns, the pellet guns, right? Officers were just really taking those guns away from kids at the time. You got to be really careful because some of them look real.
The water beads?
Yeah, the water beads. All right. Next question. Okay. Someone messaged you to show up with your friends for a fight. During this incident, one of your friends uses a knife to stab someone. What can you be charged with? Now, we just discussed it. 4th degree assault for fighting. 1st degree assault assault for stabbing someone, both A and B. D, nothing because it was a mutual fight. Okay, if you think it's A, raise your hand. If you think it's B, raise your hand. If you think it's C, both A and B, raise your hand. If you think it's D, raise your hand. Okay, so I see a few people got their hands raised. You think you won't get charged with anything because it was a mutual fight? Just because you and I agree to fight, if somebody pulls a knife, or it's a mutual fight. No, it will always be something. It's gonna be both C, A and B. Okay, I see some people look. Why do you think that is? Well, when you stab someone, what are you trying to do? So if you stab somebody in a fight, you're defending yourself? Nah, bro, I'm gonna be real. That's murder. You trying to kill somebody. Whether you meant to or not, you can't. Look, I'm telling you already, the last thing you want to do is have a bunch of police officers come up with you with some guns surrounding you, talking about, drop the knife, if you got somebody's blood in your hand, you can't tell them, yeah, I was just trying to just defend myself. Nah, bro, they don't, or worse, get to court and tell that to a judge, I'm glad you asked that question, because you gotta really be able to answer that.
Because once it escalates like that, you're involved. So say, you're just, you and some of your buddies are just beefing with some other guys, and you get a little shoving match, and one of your idiot buddies goes a little too far, you're not participating in that. So that's how things like this kind of get out of hand. You ever get yelled at for pushing and shoving in horse plant or something by adults? And they're like,
Wrestling or just
yeah.
playing around.
They say, oh, this is how things start. That's exactly what they're talking about.
Also, it goes back to what we're talking about, right? If you're with somebody, those are additional charges. If you're with one or more persons, they can charge you with gang activity on top of that. You get into a fight. That's why you got to be real careful about who you hang with and where you go and what you do. Very important. Next slide, please. Scenario 5, we'll read something.
You're riding in the backseat of a friend's car that is pulled over for a traffic violation. Officers see a gun on the floor under a seat. Who would be charged with possessing the gun? A, no one, because it was not on anyone. B, everyone in the car. C, only the person in the front passenger seat. D, only the driver.
Who y'all think it is? If you think it's A, raise your hand. Okay? If you think it's B, raise your hand. If you think it's C, raise your hand. If you think it's D, raise your hand. Okay? In that situation, everybody in the car is getting with that. Right? Because there's no way to prove who, what, when, everybody's in the car getting with that. So we implore you, when you get in the car with someone, bunch of friends, know what you're getting into. Okay? It doesn't have to just be a gun. It could be drugs. It could be something illegal. Just understand what you're getting into. Next slide. Go back, sir.
That's fine. The big issue would probably be everyone would be pulled out of the car, everyone would be talked to until they actually figured out who the gun belonged to, if they could. If not, you're driving a vehicle, anything that's in there, it's in your possession. So say you're driving around a buddy, and he's either he or she has drugs on him, has a gun on him, has alcohol on him, has really anything, and they just dump it in your back seat. Whoever is driving the car is gonna take most of the heat. Yeah, absolutely. Any questions?
Comments? All right.
Your friend picks you up in where is it? Sorry. Oh wait, no, it's a different one. Your friend picks you up in a car you don't recognize. The friend says it's okay because we'll bring the car back before anyone notices it's gone. Later the vehicle is stopped because it was reported stolen. What can you be charged with? A, you can't be charged with anything because you didn't steal it. B, you can be charged with taking a motor vehicle without permission. C, your friend can be charged can't be charged as long as you return the car to the owner. Anyone think A?
Raise your hand if you think it's A. Okay? Raise your hand if you think it's B. Raise your hand if you think it's C. The answer is you can be charged with taking a motor vehicle without permission. Because again, the police do not know all the facts. All they know is they caught you in a stolen car.
Just out of curiosity, how many of you guys or gals know someone who's like boosted a car or taken a key or something in your school or in general?
Right.
Because we deal with this like constantly, so we know plenty of people. But do you guys know anyone?
Don't worry, you're not gonna get in trouble. We're not gonna tell nobody. This is just between us.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. This is the reason why we do the work that we do. Right. I saw a couple people raise their hand here. Well, it's true. Me and Officer Phil both worked in the field where a lot of young people who made mistakes just by getting into cars, hanging with people that they shouldn't hang with, in order to, just to hang out. Remember earlier I said there's an old saying, choice not chance, right? The better choices you make, the better chances you have in life. I really stand by that. I mean, that's not a scenario. The better choices you make. If your friend pulls up in a car and you know they broke, right? They got 2 quarters to rub together, but they got this brand new car, or a car, period, and they don't have any license. You think it's smart to get in that car? You sure? I mean, it may look fun and all, but, they might have a camera out. They may like, we about to go viral. We about to, put some donuts in this car. We about to floss having that. Listen, it's all it takes is a poor choice to really put yourself in a bad scenario in life. Y'all really, your generation, and I hate to sound like an old guy, I know he's going to tease me later, right? Your generation is really filled off the clock, right? Because there are a lot of people getting famous off of the internet and their reputations, and they're doing these things in order to be quote unquote famous. There's no amount of money worth your soul or fame. None. Not even for a second. Alright? Questions? Comments? Anybody sleep? Okay.
And for some reason, well, I know the reason, but right now, boosting cars and just going for joyrides and, dropping it off in some random alley is a pretty popular pastime in Seattle.
Yeah, also, something that you need to touch on, I'm glad you brought it up. The laws are changing. The laws are changing. See, 2 years ago, a year ago, you can get caught in stolen car, you get a slap on the wrist, right? But because people have been doing it so much, and businesses and homeowners and companies are starting to lose money, they're going to change these laws, right? The worst thing that can happen to you is the one time you decide to boost a car or get in the car with somebody that just did it one time, you get caught, and then the laws change, all right? Yeah, we can wrap it up. Let's skip to the I'll tell you when we keep going. All right, we'll end on this right here, right? Want to talk about this young man right here. Does anybody know who this guy is? Who's that? Aaron Hernandez. And who was Aaron Hernandez? He was a tight end, a professional football player for the New England Patriots. The reason why I use him as a case study as we wrap this whole thing up is because I think this person personifies everything that we talked about, right? Here we had a guy who made it to the highest level possible, had $82 million contract, but wanted to, quote unquote, still have gang affiliations. He wanted to be a tough guy. He wanted to do all those things that we talked about. And unfortunately, people who was associated with him ended up getting murdered, right? Now, people believe that he was the one that murdered his friends because they didn't do something that he wanted to do. Ends up going to prison, couldn't hang, and allegedly hung himself and took his life. Now, the reason why I'm bringing him up is because they got a movie coming out. They have countless documentaries out that you guys can watch, and it touches on everything that we talked about. So if you want to see a real-life example of how gang culture, poor choices, and chasing clout can end you up in the wrong situation, that's an unfortunate story to watch, but it's a true story. So with that being said, I just want to thank you guys for having us here. I had a great time. I hope you learned something from us. We'll leave some information if you have any questions, and we'll always come back. All right? Anything to add? Thank you.
All right. Our thanks to Officers Weems and Bowen. We really appreciate that. Great presentation. We will need around 30 seconds to transition to our next presentation, so just hang tight for just a moment. All right, thank you all for your patience. I am very, very excited about this next presentation, and I'm a little biased. It's because it's a result of a program I've been a part of, I've mentioned before, part of Horn of Africa Services. We've had a number of teenagers working together for around a year now, studying the problem of gun violence and trying to figure out what can we do to change this. It is not something easy to fix, as we know. That said, I think we've had some really great breakthroughs, really great ideas. So I am very, very excited to introduce 4 representatives from our larger group who will each be sharing some of the ideas that their teams, we broke up into teams, that their teams came up with. So with that said, I'm going to hand the mic over to them.
How y'all doing? So thank you for your time and attention. We're part of a group that have been working on gun violence and gang violence, and as the other presenters have been showing, what the problem is, we would like to propose a solution for that.
In our research, we found that no single factor causes gun violence. However, there are a number of issues which can contribute to it, especially when they're combined together. This includes poverty, inequality, weak education, weak career opportunities, housing, instability, poor health, including mental health, and lax gun laws. We noticed that a number of these relate to poverty either directly or indirectly. This led us to study the cycle of poverty. This framework shows how poverty causes more poverty. The cycle has 4 steps. It starts with how poverty affects one's living conditions, such as availability of healthy food and stable living. The second step is education. People living in poor areas often get poor education. This is worsened by living conditions, such as hunger and lack of additional resources, such as extracurricular activities. The third step is employment opportunities. Poorer neighborhoods often have fewer and weaker employment options. Additionally, as a result of weaker education, it's difficult to find better career options. Lastly, the 4th step is poverty once again. Without sufficient education and skills, people are likely to remain poor, and then this cycle can unfortunately start anew for their children. We realized that if we could disrupt the cycle of poverty, not only could we uplift communities monetarily, that it could likely cause a reduction in gun violence that's associated with poorer areas. By helping people become more financially stable, we can make neighborhoods less dangerous.
Here are the 8 city-level policy proposals which our teams put together. They fall into 4 major categories: awareness, job help, guidance for youth, and health. Each category represents one of our student teams who devised 2 policies related to the category. We will now dig deeper into each of these solutions.
For my team, Team 1, we focused on the role of raising awareness about gun violence to Seattle youth. We decided that classes for Seattle Public High Schoolers is a great solution. The classes are exclusive to the high schoolers of Seattle Public Schools. They occur once a month, every month for 3 school years. Depending on feedback and changes in the audience, our lessons will improve and adapt to the environment of the schools. Our classes reach Seattle Public School students grades 9 through 12 and takes places at their schools. We chose the idea of classes on gun violence for youth because with classes being taught throughout public schools will inform the curious minds of Seattle and impact them while it matters most. Teaching them lessons about the dangers of mismanaged guns and recognizing the signs of possible threats will help the community for the better. We will know that our classes have been effective when we see a 5% decrease in Seattle youth gun violence. Our plan is the cost effective and with the cost being around $30,000. Our second idea is to spread awareness through social media or online advertising plans. So since a lot of people are online, especially youth, we'll advertise on social media platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat. in hopes to see a decrease in youth gun violence. We want to focus on the 9 through 18 age group focused in the Seattle area. We chose this plan because social media is very popular, and this plan is also very cost effective. We estimate a total cost of $65 grand or $1,000.
Team 2's topic is Job Aid. Our first idea is to provide free skill programs for seniors in Seattle public high schools. You might be wondering what our free skill programs offer. We plan to provide assistance in a range of fields such as technology, healthcare, and construction. By doing so, we help teenagers, more specifically Seattle public school seniors, prepare for future employment success. Our program desires to equip participants with the skills and knowledge they need to succeed in their future careers. We are focusing on recruiting seniors. We are focusing on recruiting seniors in high school who aren't sure what they're doing after graduating, but the program would be open for all Seattle youth 16 to 21. This would happen in Seattle, probably working with partner organizations at their locations. Our goals is to help ensure all youth have good career opportunities in employment, as well as reduce youth gun violence. We estimate this program will cost $1.3 million. Our second solution is job help for the unhoused and unemployed. This would include things like help with resumes, interview prep, and help searching for employment opportunities. We are helping people who are unhoused and unemployed in Seattle because unhoused people need more help because they got unlucky and might not have resources to get another job and they need help. Our goals are to increase the employment rate and how long people hold their jobs. This project will cost $240,000.
For Team 3, our solution focuses on youth guidance. Our team's first idea is to have one-on-one mentoring program where an adult mentor and Seattle Public High School student will be paired together. We envision that the student participating would receive 1 hour of one-on-one mentoring per week. Since similar programs like this already exist, we plan to partner with these organizations to help deliver this program. For the program, we focus on high school students in Seattle Public Schools. We found it valuable if we partner with the existing mentorship programs such as Big Brother, Big Sister to run the program. This program will be held in all Seattle public high schools. We chose this solution because we believe it would be valuable for teens to have trusted adult to look up to and seek guidance from. Additionally, high school years are a vital stage where a teen brain goes through many changes and who they become heavily dependent on peer pressure and the environment they're in. So during this theme of growth and development, it's the perfect time to be led by someone who is wiser and more mature. This way, the youth are able to break free from the cycle of poverty and hopefully find a better and more successful route away from gun violence. Is it cost over? Yeah. And the cost, our group estimated the total cost of this mentorship program to be around $1.3 million. This is a lot of money, but we think it can have a huge impact on improving students' grades and reducing gun violence. For our second solution, we plan on educating and empowering high school students by addressing crucial topics such as mental health, gang violence, and gun violence. We will do this by bringing guest speakers to speak at school assemblies, creating a supportive environment where students can gain the knowledge and tools needed to make positive life choices. The program aims to reduce the risk of students joining gangs, becoming involved in violence, or facing severe mental health issues by fostering awareness, encouraging them to seek help, and inspiring proactive steps in their own lives and communities. We calculated the cost for this solution to be $40,000. So why this solution? Firstly, it's cost effective. $40,000 is something Seattle can definitely afford. Secondly, like the other idea, we think helping students during the teenage years is very important and can have significant impact on gun violence and related issues. This could lead to a stronger, more connected community where students and families feel supported and secure.
Our team, Team 4, focused on health. For our first proposal, we would like to provide financial support to individuals exiting mental health treatment programs. We'd like to start this off as a pilot program, giving $500 to 100 people to see the outcome of this plan. If it is helpful, we will most likely continue and expand our program to more people. And for our second proposal, we would like to have workshops with schools once a month to give students the opportunity to learn about mental health and gun violence. Our program is a way for high schoolers to talk about their mental health with each other and professionals while also understanding their own emotions and the risk of gun violence. Our first idea is catered towards young adults in mental health treatment programs within the greater Seattle area who are aged 18 to 25 and are low to middle income earners. On our other hand, our second idea is catered towards high school students from grades 9 to 12. As for running the program, we would like King County to run our first idea, and the mental health program would most likely be run by mental health counselors and program coordinators, while the administrative side of it would be managed by people who previously managed the mental health pilot program with Seattle Public Schools. Mental health issues often create additional barriers to financial stability. Providing monetary aid to those who suffer from mental health issues could assist them with affording treatment and returning to stable employment. As for our second idea, focusing on students helps to address mental health issues as early as possible. It will provide a safe space for students. It will make them feel known and valued, knowing that at a place they go to every day, school, there's someone they could talk to about their mental health. So, expected outcomes, some results that we're expecting. So for the first idea, we are expecting an average 60% increase in employment number and duration, as well as self-report of reduction in mental health crises, requiring medical intervention or job issues for our first idea. And for our second idea, we hope to have around 60% of high schoolers report improvements in their mental health and communication in their school. We also expect a 2% increase in student grades. Here again is a summary of our 8 city-level solutions. We plan to continue this program next year to both further refine our proposals and to work even closer with the community and with Seattle lawmakers to make them happen.
Aside from federal, state, or city level interventions, there's also a lot we can do as individuals. Ensure proper gun storage is the law, and it can help avert disasters. Know whether guns are present at homes you visit. Take care of your physical and mental health. Get involved in positive programs outside of school. Avoid the cycle poverty trap by working hard to get good education and valuable skills.
What you can do. Number 6, you vote. A lot of major changes happen at the federal and state level. 7, contact your government representative to let them know how important this issue is to you. Lastly, you can join us at Horn of Africa in showing your support for this issue by posting a photo on HOA's social media page with the peace sign and the hashtag #NoViolenceChoosePeace. Okay, thank you all for your time. With your help, we can strengthen and uplift our community so that tragedies like the loss of Amar Murphy Payne will become a thing of the past. Thank you again. Any questions?
Any questions, anyone? Any questions?
Let's give another round of applause for our amazing participants. Thank you guys so much. You can have a seat. Thank you. Thank you, guys. I honestly, I wish you all knew how much work, how much time they put in to get to this point. It's really, really amazing, very, very impressive. I want to thank our presenters, the youth as part of our program. I want to thank Officers Bowen and Weems. I want to thank Dr. Engel, who joined us before. And I want to thank all of you for, again, joining us, sharing your time, your consideration. Gun violence is a very serious problem. It is a very, very serious problem, and it is hurting our communities. And from what I understand, immigrant communities in particular can suffer a lot from this. It's a problem, but we can fix this. We can help at least reduce this problem. And like Dr. Engel said, it kind of starts with research and education and things like that, which is exactly what we are doing here. So I want to thank you all. With your help, we really can help reduce this issue. I have some handouts I brought. I'll put them on the table over here in a moment. So if you want to take a flyer home with some of the information we have from today. And as our students mentioned, we're also doing a social media campaign. There'll be some more information about that on the flyer. I would love for you all to participate. This way you can help us say, tell, and show Seattle leadership that this is something important to us. We want to fix this problem. All right, thank you all again. And from what I understand, there's supposed to be some amazing food coming by soon, so stick around to enjoy that. Thank you all again. Is there, Dahabe, one more thing? Do you need like a minute? Okay. Since we're going to stick around for 1 or 2 extra minutes. Thank you for your patience. With that 1 or 2 extra minutes, I would love to hear from all of you. What was one thing you learned today that was surprising or that made you think? What do you guys think? Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, suicide is a very, very serious problem. We're all human, and we're all vulnerable. No one can control everything in life. Things happen that are very tough, and a lot of times when people are feeling very sad and vulnerable, they can make a decision which is regrettable. A lot of times when people make that decision, they can recover from it. If it's something like, let's say they used pills or something like that to hurt themselves. It's still extremely dangerous, but there's a lot of hope to fix it. But when people use guns, there's usually not a second chance. And this is one of the problems we find with guns and a lot of these things, like a lot of the examples, for instance, from the SPD presentation, is that, again, we're all human. Nobody is perfect. Everybody makes mistakes, and we don't want to make mistakes that will seriously harm the rest of our lives or even end our lives. So we want to avoid, for instance, making bad decisions when you're with friends, right? Hey, should we go steal this thing? Hey, should we go hurt that person? I know when you're young, even when you're older, even when you're an adult, adults do dumb things too, right? On the news every day we hear about adults who did dumb things. And a lot of time, if you just spent a few extra minutes thinking like, is this a good idea? You can usually avoid it. So one of the things I want you all to take away from the presentation today is make good choices. Make good choices, get good outcomes. We want to see you all succeed. Dahabe, are we ready? Okay. Anybody else, something that you learned today that was surprising or interesting? I'm going to check over here too. Ladies, anything that you all learned today that was surprising or interesting? Oh, yes. Also, we're going to take a group photo afterwards, so just get ready for that. Was anybody surprised to learn that you could go to jail if you're with your friend and your friend does something dumb? I was pretty surprised when I first learned about that. If I'm hanging out with my friends and my friend does something, they hurt someone, they steal something, I could get in trouble, right? That is, again, another reason why you got to really be thinking through what you're doing, making good choices. Anybody else? Anything that you learned today that was surprising or interesting? Do what? Yeah, I also thought that was really interesting. You know, when I was younger, I thought that, you know, people joined gangs like because, let's say, for instance, they were already, you know, criminals. But one of the things we see is that most of the time, you know, people are not born criminals. It is a series of choices that people make. And usually it starts off very small choices, and it just kind of gets bigger. But that is not exactly why people join gangs. It's not that they're like, hi, I'm an evil person and I want to join the evil club. That's not what it is. It's regular people, really regular people like you and me, who they make a friend and the friend is not a great influence, or they get into a situation which is not a great situation. Sometimes, as we saw, people are kind of forced into gangs. It's a very, very complicated thing. But again, this stresses the importance of good influences in your life. Having good friends, having a good relationship with your family, having supportive environments and institutions like this one, IMAS, which I forgot to mention IMAS. I want to also give a big shout out to IMAS for hosting this event today. We really appreciate it. These kinds of places, these kinds of people, these kinds of communities are what can help lift you up, offer you guidance and opportunities to really help you succeed in life.